Hello everyone, Tendy here, and today it's back and new, the Tendy reviews, and what better way to return than with none other than Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is the 6th mainline Resident Evil game, and not the 4th one like you'd expect it to be, which confuses everything. It was originally released in North America and Japan in January 2005, with PAL regions receiving the game March that year. The game then received, well, let's put it this way, a fuck ton of re-releases after initially releasing on the GameCube, with a PS2 port releasing later in 2005, a PC and Wii version in 2007, a PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 port in 2011, a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One port in 2016, and a port of the game due to release on the Nintendo Switch this year. And hell, the game even got an iOS release in 2009 and an Android release in 2013, and whatever a Zebo is. Yeah, that received a port in 2009 in Brazil for that. So yeah, it's basically fair to say that Resident Evil 4 has been on every major console since its initial release. And well, an average game doesn't just get that. And yeah, many people, and I really mean many people, consider Resident Evil 4 to be the best in the series. Hell, even one of the best games ever made. Believe it or not though, before 2019 I never even played the game. I never knew why. I had owned every Steam release Resident Evil game except for Operation Raccoon City and 4, but I never really understood why. After all, the two games everyone seems to recommend in the series is 1 and 4 and maybe nowadays 7. So I decided why not rectify that fact and play the game this year, and my god, I was not disappointed. Resident Evil 4 is possibly one of my favourite games I've ever played, which completely surprised me. Everything I saw about the game made me think it was a bit clunky and cheesy, and you know what? Now that I've played it through, I can tell you that yes, it is both of these, but it's what adds to the charm of the game. The game controls aren't particularly brilliant for today's standards. Sure, it was a deviation from the tank controls from the original games prior to it, but it still doesn't perfect anything. I mean, for God's sake, you can't even move at all whilst aiming down sights, and whilst it definitely is something that you have to get used to because it is a bit awkward at the start, you will learn to like this a lot. It really helps make situations tenser, and god damn isn't this game tense at times. I don't think I've ever been so worried about running out of ammo in the game in a while. Like, the amount of times I was running low on ammo, just barely surviving situations, was insane. The crowds of enemies the game will throw at you will annoy you as you just look at your ammo realising you have near to nil, but it makes winning those situations so rewarding. And boy, the dialogue in this game is stellar, from such lines as,
"Leon, it's been 6 hours since our last transmission. I was starting to get worried."
"Don't you mean lonely?"
and
"I've sent my right hand to dispose of you."
"Your right hand comes off?"
Whilst I debate it's not as great as from the lines what I've heard from the original version of Resident Evil, that's great for other reasons.
"That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich."
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
Anyway, let's look at the graphics first off. Now, obviously this game was released all the way back in 2004 originally on the GameCube, and well, I was using the PC HD version of the game, so I'm basing my opinion on that version. And you know what? It looks decent, especially for an upscaled version of the original game with a few changes. Obviously it's not going to win any awards for graphics or anything, but overall it's not a mess to look at. If anything it is, maybe it's the overuse of the brownish grey colour scheme this game seems to have, but really it's nothing jarring and helps to add the atmosphere of the game. And hell, even on PC there's a duo who are making a fully HD version mod for Resident Evil 4 on Steam, so give that a look if you want to see the graphics look a bit better. But something that is definitely great about Resident Evil 4 still is the sound design. The background audio in this game varies from alright to outright memorable. Resident Evil 4 is one of the few games that have a superb safe area song that really adds to the sense that this is a safe place you're at. This is where you can relax and prepare for the next encounter. But damn, most of the background tracks really add up to the tense situations you will find yourself in. The sounds the guns make are fine, I mean nothing I've mentioned there. Same for, well, anything. What about the voice acting though? Well, it's something. Again, this game has some cheesy lines, and well, the actors actresses definitely do the best they could with that. The voice actor for Leon is good, definitely pulls off the badass agent sent to rescue the president's daughter thing. Yeah, that's specific. But if the dialogue is cheesy, is it bad or good cheesy then? Is it accompanied by a great story? I'll be honest, I liked it a lot, but I'd be lying if I said it was anything worthy of an award. If you're a massive Resident Evil fan, you might love this. Personally, I thought it was passable, it's a story I can follow, and yeah, it's sort of thanks to the fact I haven't played the previous Resident Evil games, so whilst I was aware of Wesker, Umbrella Corp and the events prior to it, I didn't get them completely because I don't know the whole complete story of the series. But luckily these details are often sparse and only become noticeable in the last chapter or two. The story of the game is pretty simple. It's just about Leon going to Spain to retrieve the president's daughter who has been kidnapped, and then we learn that it's about a whole bigger operation to control the government thanks to a parasite called Las Plagas, which takes control of its hosts. A plot created by Los Illuminados, the evil cults, the religion of the game. Honestly, explaining the story in a few words isn't easy, but honestly, I'd say compared to the other Resident Evil games I've actually played, it's nothing too out of the ordinary. Hell, I'd say Resident Evil 7 actually has a lot of the same story beats in some ways. Just again, don't go into this game expecting the story to rival The Last of Us or Bioshock, and personally I wasn't. I was going into this expecting a game with great atmosphere and gameplay that is actually enjoyable. And boy, it succeeds on both of those. The atmosphere in this game is again brilliant thanks to both its soundtrack and its aesthetics, but also god damn this game is so enjoyable. The gameplay takes a short bit of time to get used to and even longer to master, but damn, it's so enjoyable the whole way through. At the start you'll be fighting for survival, at the walls being cornered by crowds of these villagers under control from the Las Plagas, and just hoping that you'll have enough ammo to win the encounter. Hell, even at the end I found myself struggling to make sure I had enough ammo, but you feel so much stronger with these more powerful weapons and more health. Hell, I'd go as far to say that this gameplay is addictive, which for a game like this is definitely surprising. I was surprised about how much into the gameplay I was. Hell, on my first time playing it, I sunk about 8 hours into the game without realising, something I had rarely done during all of 2018. And damn, this game is extremely rewarding in many ways. Getting through difficult situations will give you just the right amount of ammo to make sure it sets you up for the next encounter, and exploring is rewarded with more ammo, health items, or even valuables you can sell off to the merchant, who may actually be the creepiest yet greatest merchant to ever exist in a game. We learned about nothing from him, yet there's something so intriguing about him. Anyway, from him you can upgrade your weapons, buy new weapons, or even upgrade your inventory space, because you gotta remember one thing about Resident Evil 4, and that it's a survival horror game, and you got to make sure that you're keeping your inventory in order or there will be issues. This is especially apparent during the first 2 chapters where you will find yourself having to drop stuff or even combine them just because you haven't got enough room for this one extra item you'll find. But again, you feel a strong sense of progression when you save up enough cash to upgrade the amount of items you can have in your inventory. I found myself regularly checking up my inventory, making sure I had enough space for some more ammo or even a new weapon. And even in the latter half of the game, when I had strong weaponry and more inventory space, I still found myself having to do it. I love how this game does it as well, because it's never too intrusive, but it does also remind you that it's something you have to keep up with. But now let's talk about some stuff that I wasn't always 100% great about, and first off is the biggest complaint I have, and it's the PC version. Now apparently the original 2007 version was near unplayable. It was one of the worst PC ports out there. Now fortunately I was playing the 2014 re-release of it on Steam, the Ultimate HD version. But still, I did find myself having some pretty bad drops and stuttering. Hell, the worst example of it was during a boss battle near the end of the game, which only had this one boss in the area and a few robots, and I really mean only a few. But because of the fact it was pretty fairly sized area, and with fire effects and sand effects and some other stuff, I found myself playing this whole battle at about 30 to 40 FPS, which for a PC build like mine is quite abysmal, especially for a port of a game from 2004, because let me tell you now, the Ultimate HD version isn't that outdated to make it stutter that badly. Now I was going to give it a slight pass as my CPU had been recently being messed up a little bit, and obviously the stress of playing the game and using OBS at the same time can be a bit much. But no, a lot of people reported having pretty big stutters in the game, and hell, even struggling to reach consistent 60 FPS on decent builds. I don't know what it is with Capcom games, but their PC versions always have something, and Resident Evil 4 is no exception. Another issue I had was with the controls as a whole. Like I say, mastering them is great, you feel like you know them when you do, but learning them is a mixture of greatness and annoyance. And to make sure it wasn't just a PC control thing, I used my 360 controller, but I also sought out a Wii copy of the game to test out the Wii controls, because apparently they're more bearable. Let me tell you, I didn't like them much more than the PC version, especially on an Xbox 360 controller. I don't know, on the Xbox 360 controller you have to aim down with the LT button, which is fine, that's normal, but then you have to shoot with the X button, which I found baffling, and it didn't fare much better on the Wii either. Sure, you have a better idea where you're aiming, but to shoot you have to aim down with the B button and then press with the A button to shoot. What? All this just felt a bit floaty, and don't get me started with having to turn around on the damn Wii controller, it's just a mess. Sure, if I put more time into it I could have nailed it, but god damn, it's just not intuitive at all. But overall, does this really affect the game massively? I'd say not really. Overall, Resident Evil 4 was one of the most pleasant surprises I've had in recent memory. I enjoyed my time with the game, and I could definitely see myself playing the game through again. Hell, I didn't even mention how much additional content this game has, such as the Mercenaries mode, an arcade-style minigame in which the player can control a variety of characters to kill as many characters they can in a certain amount of time. Then there's a Simon Ada, a non-canonical scenario in which the player controls Ada and must collect Plaga samples. And then there's Separate Ways, a new story scenario in which you play as Ada during the events in the main game. Really, with all this content, memorable characters, nice gameplay, great aesthetics, satisfying and addictive gameplay, and some of the most rewarding gameplay elements I've seen in a long time, I'd say Resident Evil 4 is worthy of the score I'm going to give it. Sure, the controls aren't perfect, but you can get used to them relatively quick, and yeah, the PC version is also a bit all over the place, but really as a whole, I'd say the game's worthy of a 10 out of 10 I'm giving it. Resident Evil 4 is by far one of the most surprisingly fun games I've played in a long time, and it's really intrigued me to maybe give other Resident Evil games a play through. If you haven't already played the game yet, I strongly recommend you go out and get a copy of the game. You won't regret it. I mean, there's literally nothing stopping you. The game has been released on every console since the GameCube. Anyway, that's all for the review and the video. Did you enjoy it? What's your opinion on Resident Evil 4? Do you agree with my score or not? Type it in the comments below. As always, I'm intrigued about what you got to say. And as always, if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps a ton.